I shall start in Romanian and then I'll turn to English. Doamnelor și domnilor, dragi prieteni, bine ați venit! Mă bucur să fim astăzi aici împreună pentru a afla lucruri, pentru a descoperi o zonă mai puțin comentată, mai puțin analizată de către noi. Dar cred că ar fi mai bine să vorbesc în engleză, pentru că, practic, invitatul nostru, domnul ambasador al Indiei la București, nu cred că înțelege încă foarte bine limba română. Puțin? Okay. No, it's okay. I shall say a few things in English, and then, it will be your turn to make a presentation about the foreign policy of your country. I just went through a very interesting publication celebrating 75 years of Indian foreign policy. Very, very interesting indeed. It was the result of a debate which took place in June, I think, at the Indian Council of World Affairs. And I have learned a lot. I have seen a lot of things which we usually do not follow because we are concentrated either on Europe, either on United States, on Ukraine eventually, on Middle East now. And when we speak about, when we are more interested on Asia, we think about China, we follow the developments in China, the rivalry with the United States, and so on and so forth. But I think that it's very bad to ignore the developments and the role of India nowadays in Indo-Pacific, India-Pacific. And that's why I was very glad that Ambassador Shrivastava accepted my invitation to come here to make a presentation about the major lines of the foreign policy of his country. From time to time, we see the Indian Prime Minister making visits, making statements, some of them being challenged by some of the leaders in other parts of the world. But India has its own problems, and it's very interesting. I was telling the ambassador earlier, it's the independence of India and departing from the British protectorate took place at the same time, almost, and it was a coincidence, when the UN decided to, or suggested to make a plan to divide the territory of Palestine into two states, one Jew and one Arab. But 75 years, in 75 years in India, the developments have been fantastic. And well, I'm sure that you will have some questions at the end. You will ask some comments from the ambassador. But well, in our foreign policy, we had some contacts, maybe not so many as expected. And I remember some of difficulties. When I was foreign minister, there was a Romanian diplomat which has been kidnapped. And, but finally, he was released, and well, it was okay in the end. But a lot of developments taking now place in Asia deserve our attention. And once again, not only China, which we do very often, but India, in my opinion, should be. We should focus much more on the foreign policy of this country. That's why, without making comments, because I had some question marks or some comments on some of the new things I have learned from those documents. I think it's much better to give the floor, to offer the floor to the ambassador Rahul Shrivastava, and to ask him to make his presentation. He will speak in English. O să vă rog să vă considerați ca la operă și să închideți telefoanele, da? Pe durata dezbaterii. Și, and, well, once going back, I consider that after having well, this speech, you might like to ask questions, and we have also the possibility to translate some of the questions by the assistant of the ambassador. That's why, well, perhaps you would like also to ask questions in Romanian at the end. That's why, Ambassador, it's your turn, please.
Well, thank you, Excellency, and it's really an honor to be with such a mixed group of people. I'm told that there are people from the university, former Army General, people I know from the think tanks, former members of parliament. I had visited the foundation, this was 3 years ago, and because of the pandemic, I think it has taken some time before I could come here. You mentioned about 75 years of India's foreign policy. I thought I will go back a little more on time so that you understand where India is coming from, because history repeats itself, and what happened in the past is going to happen in the future also. It's not about mistakes. Well, I'll start, say, from 3000 BC. So from the year 3000 BC till the early 18th century, India's GDP was the biggest in the world, and by far, because India's GDP for almost 5,000 years was 25% of world's GDP. And in the early 18th century, when India's GDP was 25% of the world's GDP, China's was around 22, 23, entire Europe's GDP was then 23%. But what happened in the early 18th century? Colonization started in India. So from having a share of 25% of the world's GDP to when we got independence, this was about 200, 250 years duration. During that time, from 25% of the world's GDP, our share of world's GDP shrunk to nearly 1%. But things have started moving forward in the last 75 years. In the last 75 years, from 1% to where we stand now, we are about 8% of the world's GDP. So it took us 60 years to reach our first trillion. We got our independence in 1947. We reached our first trillion somewhere around 2015 or so. It took us 5 years to reach the next trillion, to become a $2 trillion economy. It took us 3 years to get the third trillion dollar. Last year, in terms of, I'm talking about nominal GDP, last year we crossed UK to become the 5th largest in terms of nominal GDP. In 2027, we will be crossing Japan and Germany. Things go well. By 2045, we would have crossed even the United States. So that is what I mean by history repeating itself. We came from that history and we are going there. It's going to happen. Maybe we won't be alive to see that, but it's going to happen there. So that was the history of where India comes from. Coming back to India's foreign policy, again, in terms of other countries also, the history shapes your foreign policy. In case of India also it has been so, because we came out of colonialism. We had a long struggle to independence, and that has shaped our foreign policy. What has also shaped our foreign policy, I'm talking about some general terms because I'll come to specifics later on. What has also shaped our foreign policy is the geography, because we are located in a place where we have a huge country to the north, where you have the Himalayas dividing India and China, for example. We are a country where we are told that we are the Indian subcontinent. So we are a huge country surrounded by smaller countries, so that also shapes our foreign policy. Then the geography, we are in Asia, so and that's one reason why India and Romania, when we talk in terms of foreign policy, there is not a lot of understanding here in what is happening in India. The third thing about what has shaped our foreign policy, personalities, and not in many countries it happens. In the case of India, it's happened because a lot of our principles, and you will see non-intervention, not interfering in internal affairs, all that has come from people like Mahatma Gandhi. So when we had our struggle of independence, one of the main things one of his main principles was the principle of non-violence. So that has also shaped our foreign policy. Our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, he was also the foreign minister for a very long time. So he shaped our foreign policy also. Okay, so those are the general things I thought I'll talk about. I have divided my talk into two parts. One is I will talk about the main elements of the foreign policy which has been there for last 75 years. And there are certain priorities as a continuation of those policy, which are the priorities of the present government. Well, the first point would be, and that is true for all countries, but I would want to specifically mention about India. When we say what is the first element of a foreign policy, it's about security and prosperity. Very simple words, but that's the thing as a diplomat I keep in mind all the time, because anything that I do, what impact that has on the security of India, or what impact that has on the prosperity of the people of India. When I talk about security, it's not just about the defense security, it's about food security, it's about energy security, all that. So that's the first point. The second, which you would have seen in case of international developments also, we are proud of that. We say that we have an independent policy space, meaning strategic autonomy. We are good friends with many countries. We listen to them. But finally, what we decide is what we decide based on what is good for the people of India. Most people do that, but in case of India, I'll come to some other points where you would understand this. The third element would be, continuation of the first point, is we believe in partnerships but no alliances. You would see that we have partners all over the world, but we are not part of any alliance, so to say. The fourth point is we strongly believe in respecting of international law. And what do I mean? Again, a very broad term where all countries say, yes, they do respect international law. But in case of India, there are four finer points that I would like to emphasize. One is we don't believe in unilateral sanctions. And this is not a recent development. Even when we had the development in Iraq where a big powerful country said that, okay, this is what they are going to do. We didn't tag along because we don't believe in unilateral sanctions. If the UN, where all the countries get together, they say, okay, we are going to have sanctions, we go along, but no unilateral sanctions. So that is the first point of respecting international law. Second, we don't believe in external aggression. And we were talking with Excellency just before I came here, India has never been an expansionist country. We have exported religion, we have exported peace, we have exported spirituality, but we have never gone out to conquer territories. So we are not an expansionist state, and we strongly believe that external aggression is not the way. I'll give you an example. We do have some border issues, yes, with China we have, with Pakistan we have, those are bigger ones, but say with Bangladesh we had some disputes, and there were some islands where Bangladesh disputed that these islands belong to them. We actually gave them some extra islands. We said, okay, take a few more islands and let's be happy with that. So we resolved it like that. So we don't really believe in external aggression. We believe in diplomacy, and but time and again it has shown. We have had even huge powers going outside to say, okay, I'm a huge power, I'm going to conquer you, I'm going to defeat you. It doesn't work like that. Maybe 200 years ago it was possible, not now. This is the time of diplomacy, not of war. So we don't believe in external aggression. We don't believe in interfering in internal affairs of other countries. Some countries, on the pretext of saving democracy, human rights, they can take out some terms and go outside to say, okay, we have come here to save humanity. No, I think most countries are capable of saving themselves. So when an external force comes there, situation only becomes worse. So we don't believe in interfering in internal affairs of other countries. There I would like to differentiate between interfering and intervention. We have intervened in case of, say, Sri Lanka. When they said, yes, we want your assistance because we have a situation where we can't handle the terrorist group. So we sent our army, but at their request. We have not interfered, but we have intervened at the request of that country. Fourth element of respecting international law is no export of ideologies. I might have my own ideology. You might have your own ideology. You might believe something which is correct. I might believe something which is correct, but I have no right to impose my ideology on you. And sometimes I feel that many countries, they feel that there is a standard thing for the entire world. No, it is not like that. Sometimes we are not able to understand the other person unless we are in that person's shoes. So when the situation changes, I have seen countries, they change their ideology. They will say, okay, this was correct then, this is right now. No, it's because your ideology, it can't be applied everywhere. Maybe it applies to you, not to everyone. We strongly believe in global consensus, which is, and what do I mean by that? Whether it's terrorism, whether it's climate change, whether it's a huge international issue, it has to be resolved through global consensus. No country, no matter how powerful, can be saying that, okay, I can guide the world, I am right, and I can tell you what can be done. So we believe in global consensus, meaning global issues should have global solutions. Everyone has to sit together. We are completing now our G20 presidency in November, and the motto of G20 presidency was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means, it is a Sanskrit slogan, which says that the world is a family. So this is what also I mean by global consensus, meaning all have to come together to find solutions to the world. It can't be imposed from outside. So one of the initiatives that India did in G20 was to get the global south. We got together all 120, 25 countries, and we listened to them. What are their priorities? What is that the G20 can do for the global south? And it's called the Voice of Global South Summit. India did one edition in January. The second would be in November, this month, where all the global south countries on various sessions, from finance ministers to education, various sessions, we listen to them about what they want the world to do, or what they want that the G20 should be doing for the betterment of the global south. So we listen to them, and then we put it to the G20 countries as to what can be done to help them. So that is, the world is one family. Okay, coming to current priorities, I'll go to some elements which are our country's priorities, but more so in the recent government, they have had a little more emphasis. The first is, you would have seen that we had something called the non-aligned movement. So we have moved from what I would say was non-aligned to multi-engagement. We engage with everyone. We are, sometimes people say, okay, neutral, but neutrality, I would say, is a negative word. The more the better word would be say to be active. I'm not neutral, I'm active. Just because I'm not taking sides does not mean that I have become neutral. I'm active, I'm taking sides based on my own interests. So that is what I mean by multi-engagement. A priority of the present government is also neighborhood first policy. We strongly believe that if we can't handle our neighborhood, if our neighbors are not happy, I don't think we have resolved everything. We are moving towards that. But if we can't handle our neighbors, I think it will be difficult for us to handle the outside world. So no matter what we do, we always have our neighbors first in mind. So that's the neighborhood first policy. One thing that is happening with the present government very strongly is, not in a negative connotation, is self-reliancy. There's a word for that in Hindi. It's called Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Atmanirbhar is self-reliant. So we want to be self-reliant. When I say self-reliant, does not mean that I want to live in a cocoon where I'm not concerned about what is happening in the world. But we have seen that in the last 75 years, or maybe even before that, if you are reliant on various countries, outside forces, on things of very importance to your national security, then you can't really be speaking your mind, so to say, sometimes. So we want to have that kind of reliance and self-reliance, and the government is working very hard towards that. Our Prime Minister Modi, when he came to power, he said that, and that was a task for us diplomats also, he said that whatever you do, have these things, two things in mind. One is 3 C's, the other is 3 T's. So what did he mean by 3 C's? 3 C's is connectivity, commerce, and culture. So these are 3 priorities of the present government. Connectivity more with the, not just with the neighbors around, which we are doing in a big way, but also connectivity with the world at large. Recently, when we had the G20 summit, you would have read about a corridor which is being built from India to the Middle East to Europe. So that's also part of the priority of the government, to be connected not just to the neighborhood. With the neighbors, we are doing in a big way. Right up to Thailand, we have a highway going with Maldives, with Sri Lanka, with Bangladesh, Nepal. It's been happening. But to the countries even beyond the immediate neighborhood. So that's connectivity. Commerce is very obvious. India's trade, world trade, even with Romania, I can give an example, and that's a microcosm of what is happening in terms of India's external trade. In the last 3 years, despite the pandemic, our figures are still very small, but despite the pandemic, our trade figures went up from 600 million to 1.3 billion in just 3 years. So commerce is also a priority of the government. Culture goes without saying. I think that's a very familiar thing for Romanians about India. I think the most familiar, more than the politics, is about the culture that people know about. The 3 T's also are a continuation of that, which is trade, technology, and tourism. Another priority of the government, present government, in terms of foreign policy is what we call para-diplomacy, which is earlier the foreign policy of India was the forte of the central government, the forte of the foreign ministry. So most of it was happening there. Now, increasingly, as we become more economically prosperous, we find some of our states are also, I'll give an example. For example, Maharashtra is a very prosperous state. Mumbai is the capital. If Maharashtra was a country, I think it would be the 10th largest GDP in the world. So some of the states are so huge, so they have a huge connection outside. And these states are developing linkages with outside regions on their own. Of course, with the guidance of the central government, with the guidance of the foreign ministry, but we are encouraging that, meaning foreign policy. Yes, policy would still remain the forte of the foreign ministry, but external relations are not just limited to the center or to the foreign ministry. Reforms in institutions of global governance. That's also a point that we have been pushing for. Whether it's the United Nations, UNSC, IMF, or the World Bank, these institutions have lagged behind. And I personally very strongly believe that the countries which say, okay, we are for democracy, we are for equality, these are the countries which don't want to change the status quo. Whether it's World Bank, whether it's IMF, I think these institutions, although they are useful, but they have to change with time. what happened 75 years ago, we see the world is very different. So just to give an example of UNSC, in the UNSC, last year or this year, we became the world's most populated country. Okay, that's one dimension, but we are also the 5th largest economy. We become the 3rd largest economy. Can you imagine a situation where we talk about democracy everywhere in the world, but we don't have democracy in the UN, where you have 1/5 of the humanity not represented? The 3rd biggest economy in the world not represented. In terms of purchasing power parity, we are already the 3rd. So there is some disparity, and these institutions have to change. IMF has to change. The World Bank has to change. If they don't, what happens? You start getting replaced by other things, and that's happening. You start getting replaced by BRICS, you start getting replaced by the BRICS Bank or something, some alternative will start coming up. So these institutions have to change. The final point, which is again not just of the present government, but as a priority of our India's foreign policy, is the Indian diaspora. That goes without saying. For every country, you have your diaspora as a priority. For India, more so, because we have the biggest diaspora in the world, more than that of China. We have 30 million people who live abroad. If you count how many Indian prime ministers or presidents of Indian origin, I think there are a dozen of them all over the world. A dozen countries have, I'm not even talking about the ministers or members of parliament. So this diaspora, and this is a very sensitive topic for Romania also. I know Romania has a much lesser population, and for you, when people go outside, it becomes also an issue of concern. For us, yes, also it was, meaning we had lots of people, the big brains, started going out of India in the 1970s, 80s, and now they are heading huge companies, or they have become presidents, prime ministers of other countries. We are proud of that. But yes, we did have this problem of brain drain. But we found that the diaspora going outside, people going outside, is a two-way street, meaning they go outside, but also they do good for the country, and that's happening. So we want to help the diaspora, and the diaspora is also helping India become better. So that's the final point of our present government in terms of the foreign policy. I have tried to touch very broad points, as Excellency showed you. This is just one publication that our think tank of our ministry has brought out. Every year we also come out with a compendium on the foreign policy priorities of that year. So even that is a huge volume that comes out. I have not covered specific topics, specific countries, even not India, Romania, but I'll be happy to answer any question that you might have.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It was very interesting. Let me quote from that publication something that I have found quite interesting. So about the Indian foreign policy. For us it is important, and I quote, to engage America, manage China, cultivate Europe, reassure Russia, bring Japan into play, draw neighbors in, extend the neighborhood, and expand traditional constituencies of support. There is also a quotation of Prime Minister Modi from 2018 at London Hall, who said, yes, I'll go to Israel and I'll even go to Palestine. And I think it is relevant for what is happening now in the conflict in the Middle East. But I think it was interesting also to understand how India moved from the leader of non-aligned movement to a member of G20. In fact, well, an upgrade in status with a lot of with a new environment, new priorities, and the ambassador touched some of them. But I think it's very interesting to understand that, India is no more of balancing power, as it was called at a time when, well, India was in a way in between the two blocks, but a leading voice, a leading power, with very clear question marks. For instance, why not to be accepted as a permanent member of the Security Council, and so on and so forth. So I think there are a lot of issues which are coming naturally from well, the upgraded status which followed the development of the country, the way, well, the economy, the social infrastructure developed. So now, well, questions? Domnul Mureșan, vă rog. Vă rog să luați
With immunity or not? With immunity. With immunity.
You transfer your immunity to diplomatic immunity, yes.
Diplomatic immunity. So, first of all, I want to congratulate Mr. President Nastase for organizing this special moment. And Your Excellency, congratulations for successful organizing of the G20 and of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Two big events in 1 year in your country. Which is your opinion about the future development of BRICS? And second, in connection with the situation in Gaza, Israel and Palestinian, could that have an impact also on the equilibrium with the Muslim minority in India in the future? Thank you so much.
You want to ask?
No.
If we have a similar topic, no.
They will not be similar. So
Yeah, okay. On BRICS, yes, the world knows about what is the future of BRICS. And there are some differences, yes, because you have India in the group, China in the group. But while we have political differences, I would like to say we have a lot of similarities between all the 5 countries, and that is why we got together. And it's also surprising when I sat, I'm not a multilateral man, but whenever I sat in multilateral meetings, I found that with countries, even say China and Pakistan, we have a lot of similarities when we talk about certain issues. An example is say climate change. Okay? When you talk about that, there are commonalities because we are coming from the same space. So BRICS over a period of time, and you will see when it started in 2009, even I used to, we had got an invitation and I was handling Russia then as the desk officer. I used to wonder what is the intention behind. Is that a political kind of get-together that is happening? Is that an economic kind of get-together that is happening? While there are some political undertones, but it's primarily an economic grouping that is happening. But as I said, if the world does not change, all these institutions that I talked about don't change, then BRICS might also change to change the momentum of these organizations. An example is the new development bank, which is slowly coming up. And unfortunately, the world does not get to hear of things unless they become so huge that you can't really handle. And China is an example, because till the time China was growing, people said, okay, it's not a problem. But later on, when it grew huge, they saw, okay, there's a huge monster in the room. Okay, how do we deal with that? That thing is happening with some other things. BRICS is an example, and India is also an example. So BRICS, I have only good things to say. It's not a political organization. It's not a gang of people ganging against others. But they have very common interests. They have common interests together, primarily driven economically, but yes, with some political undertones in that. With on Israel-Palestine, our policy has not changed. So our policy is what it was earlier. There might be some changes, and again, what you might be asking this question, listening to what maybe happened in the UN. In the UNGA, there was a draft resolution where we abstained. it's not because we are not with the Palestinian cause. We are with them. We were one of the first countries to send humanitarian aid. We have, in fact, even before many countries talked about Palestine, we supported the Palestine. And our first Prime Minister, he was very strongly supportive of Palestine. So we strongly believe that Palestine state has a cause and both the states have to exist together. Yes, there are, every country has to, the foreign policy can't be in the air. It is always driven by what happens in the country. We have a population of 200 million Muslims. So we can't say, okay, we are inconsiderate to what their feelings are. And their feelings are very strongly in favor of Palestine. So that's also, I would not say that is the sole reason, but we have to always keep that also in mind, because we have a huge number of, and they are not a minority, because if you have 200 million, I don't think we will call them a minority. That's a huge number. So our foreign policy on, I would want to assure that on Israel-Palestine issue has not changed. Again, here I would like to emphasize what people talk about neutrality. We are, again, not neutral on this. We are active on this. Our Prime Minister did talk to Netanyahu about this. He did talk to the Palestinians about this. We were one of the first people to provide aid. We have always been supportive of the Palestinian cause. We have always supported also economically. So we strongly feel that Palestine has as a reason to be there and as to exist as a country side to side to Israel. But violence is not a solution to that. If at all the solution is not immediate, for sure by picking up arms, neither Israel nor Palestine can solve that. And that is our message to them, and that is what our Prime Minister has been telling them. We can't when we are told sometimes, and that happened in the recent crisis also in a neighboring country. We are told, okay, which side are you with? We are on the side of India. We are by our interests. We don't have to take someone's side. We don't have to say, okay, A is right, B is not right to become maybe a powerful country. No, we are standing by our side by being inactive. I think that is wrong. So we are active, but we are not neutral. So we are not sitting there idly. We are trying to help in whatever ways we can.
Thank you very much. Doar o clipă. Deci, în primul rând, vreau să remarc că în viața internațională se întâmplă ce se întâmplă și la noi. De exemplu, domnul Bartok l-a împins pe domnul Luca și în felul ăsta l-a introdus în poză. Ceea ce ne permite cumva să înțelegem cum se întâmplă lucrurile în plan internațional. Deci, exact. Pe domnul Bartok a fost la acționat și asta aveam să spun. Da. Mișcând scaunul în față, practic l-ați introdus în poză, ceea ce este un lucru bun. E adevărat, da. Bun, domnul general. Acolo.
Mr. President, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Shevastava, it's for me a pleasure as always to see you again. You know, a great supporter of Bharat India. It was the reason for which I founded 1 year ago ASCAI, Association of Romanian Indian Relations. If you allow me, the next week I shall come to refer you about this matter. So it's a testimony and a question. The testimony is the fact that India is a great country. It's a country that is so strong that also this criminal Hitler, he told, Aryan race. So we have been for always a great cultural race. And for me, I'm very sorry that your swastika, that is very known, 5,000 years ago, because this Hitler now became criminal servant. I was in India, I was in New Delhi, and many ladies have the swastika. So this is normal. For us, no. So this is a testimony about my love for this extra great country as India. Now, as testimony, I don't understand, the president told also, how a country with 1 India and the party of Narendra Modi, I'm a little worried that 2 days ago, 35 people have been injured and 2 killed with the bombing of Christian people. I know you are very tolerant, but also, time to time, some Hindu activists are against our Christian faith. How shall do it? We love you. We love your policy. I love Narendra Modi. For me, they're like a great, great man. How can do it that these extremists, the Hindu, are not speak about the policy with the Muslim people, but speak about our Christian minority? Could we refrain to act? 2 people killed, 35? It's not the first time. I'm a little worried. Thank you very much.
For those who don't know, Christianity came to India before it came to Europe. It came to India in the 52 AD and it has survived there till now. About your point, we are, yes, a country of 1.4 billion people. And in a country of 1.4 billion people, you will surely have 1 or 2 crazy people. And these are the people who create such incidents. And the government does not condone that. It's if it was a government's policy, if it was the policy of the present government, then yes, okay, it's a matter of something that has to be concerned about. It's not something that is driven by the government. And yes, ideally, we would want to live in an ideal country where out of 1.4 billion people, nothing happens. Nothing happens. But that is the ideal situation. It's like heaven. It will never happen. So you will have some incidents, 1, 2, 3 incidents, those happen. Just a little bit of digression. We talked about we have the second largest Muslim population in the world. We have given birth to 4 greatest religions in the world, biggest religions in the world. And even in the same 14th century, when in Iran people were driven out, Parsis, they came to India. That's the place they found home. If there's one country where Jews have not been persecuted, it's in India. And even the Prime Minister of Israel tells this. So coming to your point, yes, we do have these 1, 2, 3 elements which come. And unfortunately, and more so in the European media, I find that they will not talk about what's good happening in India. They'll not talk about I don't see any article, even in Romania, where they talk about how the economy is growing, how things are improving. But these articles come. It's not just Romania. I see economists I take out, they will have one such article. But in a country of 1.4 billion, I would want to have complete peace. But unfortunately, we have these 2, 3, 4 mad people roaming around. Someone will form a group. Someone has got a personal agenda against someone. And these are the kinds of incidents happen. I would be concerned, number 1, as I said, if it was a government policy. Number 2, I would be concerned if it was happening every day by thousands. Then, okay, there is some process going on. And you have been to India, you would see, if you go to the streets, Indians are peaceful people. We are not rich people, but we are peaceful people. We might have 2 million people going around somewhere, but they don't fight. And only yesterday I met a gentleman, he was telling that I want to go to Mahakumbh. This is the biggest gathering of people on earth that happens. You can see it from satellite. About 10 million people gather in one place every 12 years. And there's not one incident of violence happening. So yes, we don't say that such incidents are good. It should not happen. But it should be a matter of concern, as I said, if repetitively happens or it happens in a big way.
Thank you. Gaurav.
Thank you very much, Professor Adriana Stase, for this very timely meeting, as always, and very interesting discussion. And we have opened up Your Excellency, Ambassador Shri Pastava. I want to say in the beginning that I have completed my formative years 20 years back in Maharashtra, which you mentioned as one of the most forward states mission which happened recently, which was a success of India. I have a footnote question in the image of Indian external policy, because you addressed the issue of Vasudeva Kutumbaka and of course of Indian diaspora. And as you well know, and the Mondial Bank, and the case of the Mondial Bank, so it's some issue which you will see I will touch upon right now. What do you think about the policy of ICCR, about Indian diaspora, taking back the idea of Indira Gandhi, of Roma people as the lost children of India, because we have 11 million Romani people in the world. This is a realistic, minimal, realistic number, but the NGO and the Mondial Bank tries to push for more, and they try to push for more, and out of half of them, they are living in Europe, and in Europe, more than 3/4 are living in my country, in Romania, and well, they actually are not more than 10%. Historically, because I studied their demography, they were never more than 10%, but still it's a consistent number of Romani people who, I don't know, some politicians in India would like to see as NRI. What is your opinion, and what is your government opinion about Romani people as NRI? Yeah.
Use certain words which others might not be familiar. NRI is non-resident Indian. This is about the diaspora. So before I come to the Roma people, I'll talk a little about the diaspora, how it started. We didn't have something called overseas citizenship of India. We don't have dual citizenship. So our diaspora, 30 million living outside, they said, how you are giving us this choice that either you be citizen of that country or you be citizen, you have to choose between the two of us. So we came out with something. We still don't have dual citizenship for certain reasons, but we have something which is very close to that. We call that overseas citizen of India. So you can't vote, you can't buy land, but you can do practically everything else with that when you become OCI, overseas citizen of India. So most of the diaspora has that, overseas citizenship of India status. But again, on that, we can't be expanding in one go, but it has been happening in the last 10, 15 years. It has been happening very strongly. Earlier, the diaspora, Indian diaspora, had got no, so to say, official connection with India. They didn't have a document apart from a multiple entry visa. So we came out with this OCI card. But the first step was, I can't be giving it to everyone who is a person of Indian origin. So we said, okay, it will be 2 generations. So if your grandfather is Indian origin, you prove it by documents, then you will do that. If we slowly expanded that, and you mentioned about our Prime Minister's visit to Israel, when he went there, he was told that there are many people of Indian origin who can't have this OCI, overseas citizenship of India, because they have served in the military, and we had a restriction. So he said no, for then we'll remove that restriction. So slowly that has been expanding, meaning the category that covers overseas citizen of India has been expanding. You mentioned about the numbers of Roma people, 11 million, compared to our diaspora, which is 30 million. 11 number is not a huge number. Yes, it is a big number, and there is no disputing the fact that Roma people did come from India. So our hand towards Roma people from, I would say, if it was 0 20 years ago, it is again moving forward. I'll give you, you mentioned about our foreign minister saying children of India, all that. Just to say what we have been doing. I can talk about our embassy or our, my personally, what I've been doing. One of my first meetings that I had was with the president of the Roma agency, the president of the Roma National Agency for Roma when I came here. Just in the last 1 week, I have, or in the last 1 month, I have had meetings with, say, 3-4 groups. Even next Friday, we have a conference on Roma which is happening in the embassy. Last month we had one where we got someone from India who was in that conference. And we have worked out a plan on how we will go ahead. So at some point of time, I do see that Roma people all over Europe, more so in Romania, getting some kind of maybe official status. I don't want to give some kind of guarantee because there is no such policy right now, but I see that happening maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line. But the integration is happening. Slowly the recognition that yes, these are people of Indian origin. Maybe they went not 200 years ago, but they've gone 1,000 years ago. And science is helping because many people, even yesterday I was having a dinner with a very, not a famous person, but a person who is well known in Romania of Roma origin. And the family, they told me that they did DNA test. And to their surprise, they found that between 40 to 60% of genes is Indian origin. And I said, okay, so another person, I asked, okay, 60% of your blood is genes is from India. What about your wife? The wife is Romanian. He said 0. So even science is now proving that there is this connection that is there. So the integration will happen. We need not rush it. It will take its own time, and it may not be very fast, but at some point of time, yes, the integration is going to happen, and it's moving forward. That's more important. I'll give you just one more example to prove the point that we are also very interested in this. In June, we had our Foreign Office consultations where it happened at the state secretary level. Our state secretary had come, and he had an idea. He said, every 2 years when we have our annual diaspora event, it's a huge event which happens from all over the world. We get people from the diaspora. So his thought was that the next diaspora event, I think it happens in 2025, January, we will also include the Roma people. So as I said, the integration is happening, slowly moving forward. But as I said, I can't give a guarantee when officially it's going to say, okay, now Roma people will also have the OCI card. That may take some time.
Da. Vă rog. Doamna Petruleșa.
You mentioned neutrality as a basic principle of India's foreign policy. Nevertheless, I would like to elaborate on two topics. One of them already addressed by Mr. Boreșanu. So, Israel's Gaza offensive has spilled over, and it has already caused the involvement of third parties, and is likely to lead to a major confrontation between the two great blocs. On one side, the US-led Western, collective Western, and on the other side, the so-called South Group, in this particular case, mainly consisting of Russia, China, and Iran. Now, given the problems your country has been experiencing with extremist Muslim groups, in case of escalation of the Gaza conflict, on which side will India position itself in point of common interest as to these two major groups aforementioned? And secondly, how does India react to the sort of alliance bloc between Russia and China in the light of the traditional positive relations with Russia and of the former border issues with China? Thank you.
Okay, when I said about India's principles, one of the things I mentioned that we are not neutral. No issues are we neutral. We are active. We are not inactive. So on every issue, we can't have a black and white kind of situation. You can't say, okay, is it 1, is it 0? Because things are more complex than that. In case of Israel and Palestine also, we are on the side of peace. We mentioned that even, so it doesn't help me, and I'll go back to a topic which is again very much in debate in Romania. When the Ukrainian conflict started, we were told, okay, are you on side of Ukraine, are you on side of Russia? We are on side of peace. And how does it help? Supposing there are two parties at war, and I say, okay, I'm on the side of party A, I close my doors to party B then. I can't be really, which means I'm not impartial. In case of Israel and Palestine, Russia and Ukraine, our Prime Minister has picked up phone, talked to both people. If supposing one day we said, okay, we are on side of Ukraine, you then can't talk to the other side. So what doesn't come out in the media does not mean that we are not doing anything. But yes, we have to be also pragmatic. We are not members of UNSC, okay? So we can't, we are not, no, we are becoming an increasingly world power, not a very great word, but still we are a little bigger than a regional power. We are not really, we don't have that kind of weight where we say, okay, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do. And it's not happening in our neighborhood. In our neighborhood, you can always, as it happened in case of Romania, in your neighborhood, if something happens, you can always be a little more closely associated with that. If something happens in the, it does not mean that it's not going to affect you, but it also does not mean, in case of India, that we are neutral. We are very much in favor of finding a solution which does not come through violence, which does not come through, and our Prime Minister did talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and this is what he would have said also. He told Putin also, this is not the time of war. So this is what we want, because there should be no violence. We can't be taking sides. We are on both sides. Every side has a story to tell, and we are on the side of peace. We are, for the last 75 years of our existence, we have supported the Palestinian cause. We were one of the first people to support them in the United Nations. So we can't be, no, it can't be 1 or 0 kind of situation. And I want to assure you again, we are not neutral. Your second was about China-Russia alliances happening. See, we have reached a stage where we can, I don't say that we are not influenced by what is happening around the world, what other big powers tell us to do, or what their priorities are, what they would want us to do. But we have reached a situation, and earlier also it was there, more so right now, where we see each relationship on their own standing. I can't be seeing my relationship with Russia through the prism of China. I can't be seeing my relationship with Russia through the prism of United States. It has a life of its own. So we can't, again, on that we can't be saying, okay, and it's for Russia to decide who they want to deal with. If China and Russia are happy getting together, it's in their national interest, so be it. Why should I be telling them what they should be doing about their foreign policy? We don't want to be dictated by others telling what we should be doing. So if they choose to be friends with each other, so be it. I will have relationship with China on its own standing, not guided by their relations with other countries. Same with Russia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate very much your very comprehensive presentation, and at the same time your sincere answers till now. Every country has its own position in the world. The foreign policy cannot be only made in relation with your geographical position. I cannot make your foreign policy. Secondly, you are now involved in different understandings. One of them is BRICS, then my question is not related with the last one. First question, if you now, inside of this circle of 11, from 6 up to 11, you use or intend to use or your personal or your current currency, having in mind the intention to de-dollarize your economics. Second, you are nuclear power. If you now assume a nuclear umbrella for your neighboring countries or another subject on this way. And the last one is related with the very recent accord, military accord between India and Romania. We just passed the law in the parliament. 12 domains are included there, and I'm really happy to collaborate in this way with your army, with your defense minister. One of the points now is that to transfer of the high technology. You are very advanced in your space technology and so on. We discuss about the satellites in in the world that to be used in different fields. That I underline now, how do we see our coming, in the next year, or the coming year, our relations, our cooperation in this area, because I try to keep in mind that in the Silicon Valley, it's speaking Romanian and Indians. It's another joke, it's a reality. And the last question really is, because I appreciate very much your sovereign position in order to be not obeyed to anyone who try to dictate to you. But now, I listen, one of, let's say, Secretary of State of the United States, that the India is the counterbalanced of the China in the case that they have to increase the challenges over the Taiwan. I put in balance your position with the pressure over you from another part. If you can make some clear aspects of this matter. Thank you.
I'll come in the reverse order of your questions on, that is how US sees it, maybe if the Secretary of State has said and, that they see India as a counterbalance. We don't see it like that, and one of our elements of our foreign policy has also been that there is enough space in the world for India to be there, to China to be there. We are not competing with any country. We are not in the competition. We are competing with ourselves. If I can do better for my country, it's fine. People live well. So that's the answer. So other countries might have their own perspective. They might see India as a counterbalance to China. We don't see it like that. We have, if China is a big power, India grows, I think there is a lot of space for both of us. We want to live in peace. That's the most important thing. About the defense agreement, yes, it's a very important development. We signed the defense agreement when the State Secretary of Defense went to India this year. It will be soon ratified by your parliament. The defense agreement is just a beginning. We have, even maybe when you were foreign minister or prime minister, at that point of time, we did have some contacts. For example, the MiG airplanes, they came in a big way. They even now come to Bacau for overhaul repairs, all that happened. But the defense cooperation was in bits and pieces. So we want to revive whatever was there. At the same time, build on new areas. You mentioned about space technology. I think all that will take, high technology may take some time before we have a level of confidence. But we are starting with, say, cyber security. That's an important element in defense cooperation. Training we are doing. Some areas like tropical medicine, all those areas we are starting. We have had some defense companies who have come here and who have had meetings in the defense industry here. So those things are happening. One element here why I see some potential in cooperation is earlier, while our defense equipment was mostly of the Soviet-made, Soviet kind, we now also have NATO compatibility. And we were a net importer. We still are a net importer of defense equipment. But in the last 5 years, from zero exports, we have reached about 3 billion. In the next 2 years, we will reach 5 billion of exports. So India, in terms of defense exports, is also increasing its capability. So I see a lot that we can do, more so because we have also NATO capability equipment. We have both. But it's a beginning. It's slowly going to scale up. And a point from there is, in the last 3-4 years, I also found with Romania, although we are not as active as I would have wanted the relationship to be, or as intense, but we have moved into strategic areas of cooperation. That's happening slowly. Defense is one. Space is also one area. Cyber is another area. IT, some high areas also we are cooperating. So we are slowly moving into strategic areas also. Your question on BRICS currency. BRICS currency, yes, at some. Sorry? Yes, I don't have from official sources what is going to happen of BRICS currency, but at some point of time, yes, it may be a BRICS currency, people are trying to find alternate to dollar, the US dollar, because for those who know about the history of dollar, it's not pegged to the gold standard anymore since the 1970s. So many countries are also, who have sanctions on them, maybe they are frustrated with dollars, so they come up with this idea that there should be an alternative to dollar. And slowly the amount of trade that is done in dollars, in the last 10 years, it has come down from some 70-80% to about 60% or so. So it's rapidly decreasing. So people are trying to find an alternative to dollar. Maybe it will happen whether it's Bitcoin or whether it's some kind of cryptocurrency or BRICS currency. But in BRICS, I haven't seen some formal talk going on about the currency, because there are serious issues also on that. Because we do have bilateral arrangement with some countries. For example, with UAE we have, where we buy oil not in dollar but some other currency, or with Russia we did try. But why it doesn't help? It's because there's a huge trade mismatch, trade imbalance is there. If we buy 90 from Russia, we're exporting just 10. So we can't really have a local currency which can replace the dollar. It will maybe move in that direction, but right now I would not say that it has moved in a big way. No, I haven't seen any official sources saying that yes, we are moving towards a BRICS currency. What was the fourth question?
According with your nuclear weapons, if
Okay.
you extend the
Yeah, okay. Yeah, nuclear is like this. India is the only nuclear country which has said that all nuclear countries, please sit down. We are ready to scrap all nuclear weapons. But everyone has to agree. It can't happen. I will not scrap, you will scrap. India is the only country which says that. And we are, I think, the only country, maybe there are maybe one more, we have a no first use policy on nuclear weapon. Many other countries don't have, maybe one or two has, I'm not sure about that. We have a no first use policy on nuclear weapons. And we are the only country which has said, let's have a nuclear free world. But one day we have to sit across. So all the CTBT, NPT, these are all partial treaties, which means I have got inside the room, I don't want you to be inside the room. We have not got a nuclear weapon to bomb someone who does not have, but if someone bombs us with a nuclear weapon, we are going to reciprocate. No first use policy. I hope that does not come. But the day all the nuclear powers sit together and say we are scrapping our nuclear weapons, we are happy to do that.
It will take some time. Daru Klipa. I just want to make another quotation from Foreign Minister Dr. Jai Shankar, who said that, who emphasized in one of his speeches that India's foreign policy in the last 7 decades can be divided into 6 phases. The first one, from 46 till 62, which was an era of optimistic non-alignment. Second phase, from 62, it was the war with China, 62, till 1971, was a decade of realism and recovery. Third phase, from 71 till 1991, which witnessed greater Indian regional assertion with the creation of Bangladesh. The fourth phase, from 91 till 99, which was a period of India's focus on safeguarding its strategic autonomy. The fifth phase, from 2000 till 2013, where India gradually acquired the attributes of balancing power. And the present phase, which started in 2014, till present, which for India is a phase of energetic diplomacy, with a fast-growing China, and an unsure United States, a global economy that was recovering from the 2008 financial crisis, and the fast-growing multipolar nature of the world. India recognized that it was now entering to a world of issue-based arrangements. Well, I think it was an excellent synthesis of some of the comments which have been made here. And, well, the upgrade I was telling about at a certain moment was obvious from one stage to another. And then, this last phase, which started with a mandate of the Prime Minister, and in which India moved from the neutrality, active neutrality, to a certain role in G20, being part of the industrialized world. I mean, being the voice of developing countries, of the voice of global South, but in the industrial system. Which I think it's a very interesting change. Maybe, I don't know if you consider that I am right in emphasizing those elements, which can be part of the changes which took place in the Indian foreign policy. Maybe if you agree,
Yes,
you agree.
Yes.
Okay.
I
Then,
do agree that although
I mean, you have to agree.
Yes,
it was your foreign minister. I mean,
yes, on multipolarity, yes, that's one thing, because unipolarity is not solution to the world. We believe in a democratic system, but at the same time, bipolarity also, we have seen the problems of that. So we do believe that it should be a multipolar world. But personally, yes, while I began with that, for 5,000 years, in some ways, we were the world power, but we never said that we are the world power. So that's not something I like, because India is not an expansionist country. So we would want, we might become the largest economy in the world, but I can assure you that we will never be interventionist. Meaning we go outside, do aggression, expansionist, all that will not happen. So even if India becomes the biggest economy in the world, we'll see that with a little more humility rather than thumping our chest about it. And if we can, we will surely use whatever might we have to bring more peace to the world rather than imposing ourselves on other countries.
Thank you. Doamna Popescu. Luați microfonul acesta ca să nu mergeți până acolo, dacă e mai comod.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Adrian Năstase, and thank you very much for the invitation, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, my name is Cristina Popescu, and I'm representing the Romanian issuing authority of postage stamps. And we try to cooperate with our partners from the government of India, the Department of Postal Network, to issue a stamp dedicated to our diplomatic relations. And that means with our cooperation with the Foreign Ministry of Romanian government, and we inform you also, we try to sign an agreement because, as you know, and I hope that this is an interesting idea of our connections regarding the culture, the folk costumes, and not only the UNESCO heritage, to try to establish in our philatelic treasure this kind of ambassador of the government, and which for our Romanian government and for your country, the stamp, it's the real ambassador that can travel and can transfer to all over the world, and not only the national but international market, our connections. And that means the cultural can tie it and can establish not only the political issues that everybody is now discussing in our parliament or in other international organizations, but I hope that the postage stamp can be our tide of this kind of cooperation. Thank you very much.
Just for your background, I would want to, I have got your letter, so I'm working on that. I'll send you a reply also. But for the background, stamp is one of the things what inspired me to join diplomacy, because when I was 8-10 years old, I used to start collecting stamps, and that has been my hobby. Wherever I go, I do collect stamps. I have an album. Sometimes I think once in a year or once in 2 years, I sit down to rearrange all my stamps. So it's a personal hobby also. So even before your letter came, which we will surely work on, I didn't completely understand. You have reached out to the Department of Post. You have got a reply. They are ready to do. Okay. Even before that, we were planning, and we were in touch with our Department of Post. We were planning an exhibition of stamps from India in Romania, Moldova also, 2 countries we were planning. So that's something we are working on with Department of Post. Maybe at some point in time it will happen. But surely on this 75th anniversary of, we are celebrating 75th anniversary of India and Romania's diplomatic relations, we'll choose a topic. I'll have to discuss with my foreign ministry. Maybe they have some ideas in mind, but the UNESCO heritage is one thing, or costumes, as you said. We can surely choose a topic. Our foreign minister was to come this year. It has not worked out. Visit I would have been very happy to have, but most likely the Romanian foreign minister might go to the Raisina dialogue because she has an invitation. I hope she goes. So whenever we have a visit like this, we can release the stamp. So I can tell you that I have received a letter. I'll also formally reply to you, but I was a little confused as to have you already reached the Department of Post? Have you? So I'll be in touch with you. I'll take some details, and surely we'll do that. Not a problem.
The stamp means memory, identity, and friendship.
Bine. Mulțumesc foarte mult. Cred că pentru astăzi este suficient. Data viitoare o să lansăm o carte despre minorități, despre drepturile minorităților, o carte cu documente despre minoritățile din România în perioada interbelică și documente și reglementări în această chestiune, felul în care guvernul român a răspuns unor critici legate de problematica minorităților, pornind de la tratatul referitor la minorități de după Primul Război Mondial. Deci este o carte extrem de interesantă. Va fi, cred, un documentar extrem de interesant. Va veni și profesorul Ioan Scurtu, domnul Preda, vor vorbi despre această carte pe care am realizat-o împreună cu Florian Banu și vă aștept săptămâna viitoare la aceeași oră, dacă aveți vreme. I just explain, well, the next week we shall organize another event. Okay, so dear friends, dear ambassador, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I think it was an interesting debate, an interesting event, and I hope that you'll remain in touch with us. We might have perhaps a certain connection with your foreign ministry think tank, and eventually organize a seminar together here or in India. So once again, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. Thank you.